What's up, YouTube, Rumble, wherever this gets out to? Welcome. I'm the prodigal son. I chose that name for a reason. I don't know if anybody's going to listen to this, but I felt like maybe it was time to share my story. I've gone through quite a bit in my life, and I never knew how quite to tell the story. Like, there's so many things that have happened in my life, and some things don't need to be talked about anymore. I put them away, and I'm not going to deal with it. I've dealt with it. And so let's just try. So I was born in West Virginia, Christian home, great parents, two older sisters. I was the youngest. And, it was a normal life, whatever. I was a very active kid. There was a boy in my neighborhood who done some things to me. Sure, you can use your imagination. And, it happened. It's whatever. So then, when I was 10, I moved to Pennsylvania. My dad worked on the railroad, and we moved around a lot. And I went to school from 4th to 6th grade in Altoona. And so I wasn't there for only a couple of years. But in those couple of years, I met a lot of kids. So then I moved to a different, right on the other side of Altoona, another little city, a smaller city, and I went to high school there, junior high and high school. And I just got beat up, and I was bullied like pretty much nobody else. I was bullied the worst. I never even knew why. Um, I wasn't a weirdo, I wasn't strange, but I didn't know what was cool. I didn't know what kids were into then. I just tried to fit in where I could. And the more I tried to fit in, the more I got beat up and bullied. So from 10th to 12th grade, I went to a private school. And then in the middle of that last year of high school, I got kicked out, went back to Hollidaysburg, and really got bullied the last few months that I was there. Um, and I still really honestly don't know why I was so hated. So I'm skipping over a lot because I don't want to make this 5 hours long. I'm trying to just talk about the more important things. So let's take a step back. When I was 5 or 6 years old, I don't know, I was really young. I had to go with my parents out of town to South Carolina or North Carolina. I think it was South. And we were only going to be there once. So for whatever reason, normally we had to sit in the front row. My father had us sit up in the balcony because we were only going to be there once. And he actually let me sit on the floor and play with my Matchbox, which is not, I was usually in the front row, sitting up like a little man, paying attention, hands folded, acting correct. That's the kind of father I grew up with. Not a bad thing either. I'm not making it out to be bad. So, praise and worship is going on. And if you know anything about praise and worship, say in a Pentecostal church, you know that they don't just stop it, especially for no good reason. Usually once it starts, they get into it for, 20, 30, 40 minutes, an hour and a half. Depends on, how in depth and how much the Spirit is moving in that church that day. And the pastor gets up and he's like, I'm sorry, everybody, stop the music, stop the music, stop the music. And, you hear one instrument stop, there's another couple going, and one more stop, and everybody's kind of like confused on what's going on. And I'm doing my best to remember because you'll understand why I'm having a hard time remembering later in the story. So he calls me down to the stage. He says that he has to stop the music, that God is telling him that it is time. He needs to do this right now, and, it's very important. So he calls me down to the stage. He says, I need to stop the music. God's telling me I need to do this right now. Is there a little boy from out of town? His name is Brent. I need him to come down to the stage. So I'm like completely confused. My parents are confused. Everybody in the church is confused. And so I went down by myself and I walked up on stage and I'm terrified. And I'm looking around like, what's going on? And he says, it's short. And he says, I don't know, what he's got planned. But all I know is that God told me to stop the music because he has a very important role for you to play and that someday you will stand before thousands in his name. Okay, whatever. I'm 5 years old. What am I supposed to do with that? And I'm just like, okay. Right back up to the balcony. And I just, I kind of thought about it a little bit. Throughout my years of living, I thought about it. For a while, I didn't think about it because of what I'm about to get into now. So, when I was 16, I was going to the private school, which was right behind the mall. So I would just go to the mall after I was done with school. And I went to school with a kid who went to the same church with me. Well, it happened to be that kid was friends with all those other kids that I met in 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. And guess who those kids ended up being? The worst of the worst, the troublemakers, the bad kids. Well, growing up with those things that happened to me as a kid, I just didn't know how to process it. And I honestly hated the world. I don't know why I felt this way, but when my dad was always working, and I mean always working, never home, I used to cry and beg for my dad to be home. I just missed him. It's why I believe our society is caving in at the speed that it is, because most parents are single parents, or if they do have a father, the father is not a very manly father. And I don't care, that is needed. That's why this country was so successful until the counterculture in the 60s broke all that up. And then that's the beginning of the end of this country and the world, for what we're seeing. So yeah, I blame it on the counterculture, because up into the 50s, America was stronger and stronger and getting stronger. And could you imagine if we wouldn't have had the counterculture to mess this up, where we would be at right now as a Christian country? So I got into drugs, selling drugs, doing drugs. Obviously, I was a thief, because that's what we did to make money. We would steal car stereos, steal out of the mall, whatever. And it was just a big game. Like, we weren't out to be evil or purposely want to go out and hurt people. It was just fun, and especially for me, because I never really had many friends or any kind of acceptance in my life. So when these kids accepted me, oh my, I felt like I'd finally had, a purpose. I actually fit in somewhere, and I was just glad to be accepted. Started smoking weed, and after that, did that from 16 to 17, and 17 to 18, I experimented with LSD, and I mean a lot of it. I followed the Grateful Dead and Fish. Drank, messed around with a few things, Xanax and stuff. And then when I was 18, all my friends were eating pills, and nobody wanted to eat acid anymore, because it just makes you stay up for so long, and you get all wired out and achy and can't sleep, eat nothing when you come down. At least I couldn't. And so we wanted a different kind of buzz. And so the pills came in. And so, obviously I got into the pill situation. But then some kids from Hollidaysburg started going to Philadelphia and buying heroin in the open drug market and bringing it home. And my friends got into it real fast, and so did I. And then one day I bought a bunch of pills. I spent like $60 on pills, took them all, barely felt anything. And my best friend was like, why are you wasting your time, effort, and money when you can do a half a bag of heroin and be higher than any of those pills could ever get you? And then you still have half left, and for $20. So that's what I did. And then the needles came in. And so up until 32 years old, I struggled with all kinds of drug addiction, sex addiction, um, you name it, I was involved in it. I was a big drug dealer. Um, I was doing coke. I was smoking crack. I didn't do meth, but I just was a garbage head. Anything I could get. And all of this comes back basically to me as unforgiveness that I kept in my heart for the things that had happened to me, being bullied and whatnot. Um, I couldn't handle what had happened to me. And it all through those up till I was 32, I had kidney stones. I had 38 kidney stone surgeries. I have a scar from my belly button to my spine where they're going to remove my kidney. I shut my lungs down from smoking crack, and all the air I was breathing couldn't go into my lungs and was going around my throat and suffocating me slowly and surely. And I had all these air bubbles, felt like Rice Krispies in my neck. And I should have died from that. I was in the ICU for 7 days. I was found blue, laying on the ground with a needle stuck in my arm, not breathing. I was at a party one night and I was drunk. We were at a bonfire, and before I left, somebody gave me two Xanax or Valium, and I took them. And I was literally a couple minutes from my house, and I went straight into a tree going 70 miles an hour, flew out the windshield, and messed my whole body up through it. Hurt a bunch of people real bad that were in the car with me. And I mean, I could just find story after story after story of all the things that I went through. I also learned to fight. When I would go to jail, I would get cleaned up, I would eat and work out all the time, and I got into fighting. So then, into my 30s, I stopped with the drugs pretty much for the most part, but the alcohol took over. And I dated a girl that I shouldn't have been dating, and her whole family were heavy, heavy drinkers. And I love the taste of certain whiskey. So I became an alcoholic, even though I was a functional. I went to work and I didn't cheat. I made money. I had a job, but I drank all the time. And I was starting to draw closer to God. I just started seeing things in the world that just didn't sit right with me, like on certain timelines on where, we might be at for the end of the world. And I just felt like, God was speaking to me. So I started to go towards the Bible and my religion and what I believed. So the girl that I was dating that drank all the time, she didn't like that. And we broke up, and I was devastated again. And this time I went back to doing drugs again for just about 2 years. And then I don't know. I tried to commit suicide. I couldn't tell you how many times. I always wanted to just fall asleep on pills. I had a gun in my mouth once, but all I could think about was, what would happen when I die, and my parents and everybody has to see me in my casket, and I blew my head off, and I just couldn't pull the trigger. I could hear the trigger squeezing as I had the barrel in my mouth. And I don't know how many times I swallowed handfuls of pills, woke up in ICU. Finally, everybody had been just about had it with me, and basically wrote me off for good. They sent me to Phoenix, Arizona, to this place called Church on the Street. And it worked wonders. It really did. It helped me immensely. But then when I came, at first I went twice actually. I've been to rehab like 20 some times, been to jail 8 times. So, this was like I was a revolving door, right? In and out, in and out. So then the first time I went out, I was only there for like 6 weeks, and I thought I was better. Obviously I wasn't. I came back a couple of years later, whenever this was all going on. I went back again. And then I came back. And this time I was 32. And that's when I started dating the girl that drank. So, when we were breaking up, I was devastated. Like, I was so good to this person, this girl. I took care of her kids, helped her go through college, and then she, for no good reason, literally broke up with me. But in reality, it was God. Um, she was very sexually liberated, and before we dated, the house she lived in, they had a lot of sex parties and, threesomes, whatever. And then, in fact, her dad owned it before her, who did the same thing. And the grandfather before him owned it, wasn't a good guy. So this house was full of bad spirits. One day I opened the Bible and I started walking around through the house and I'm praying. I'm upstairs. And nobody was supposed to be home yet. And I heard the door open and I heard, rustling around downstairs. And then she comes flying up the stairs, around the banister, screaming in my face, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And I'm just like, calm down. I'm just trying to air out your house, do you a favor. Pray and get rid of this evil that's you've been living around for so long. And she lost it. And I mean, lost it. She's screaming at me. She's spitting in my face. I could see a demonic face come out of her face for about a second and a half, 2 seconds. It was just like, ah, and then back in. But her face contorted and changed demonically. Before we broke up, I know this is kind of hard. I'm jumping back and forth, but I don't know how else to do this. I'm just kind of winging it at this point. And I just want people to know what God has done for me. That's the purpose of this video. We were at the bar one night and I had stayed up. I had worked 2 or 3 shifts in a row over Thursday night into Friday, because Friday night I wanted to go out and see a band, a heavy metal band, because when they were here the time before, I was breaking up from a different girl who I thought I was supposed to be with. And she left me and I was hurt. So I went drinking and heard this band. So the guy, the singer, I actually met him and we were drinking all night and he just kept buying me drinks. So I had been up for over 48 hours and I'm just hammering alcohol, not beer either, just straight liquor all night. Well, I wanted to go home. I was tired and they wanted to keep partying. So it was me, the girl I was dating, and 3 of her friends. I knew them, but they weren't my friends. They were her friends. Well, the one girl we were with, I actually knew her. Oops, sorry. I knew her from, she lived behind my parents and on the other side of the alley. And so I had seen her and I'd met her. My dad tried to play matchmaker with me, but I wasn't interested in her. But I had heard her story briefly because I had just come back from Phoenix with the drug thing. She told me that she had a kid to this guy and he used to beat her and stuff and was a druggie and an alcoholic. Well, that was one of the people that was with me that night. And we went to this bar that I had never gone to because I never wanted to. It was not a good place to be. Only the worst of the worst would go there. Well, we got in a big fight because that's where she wanted to go. And so we went. And it wasn't 15 minutes in, I got my first drink. And we were all at a table. And they all left except for me and that girl that lived behind my parents that I'm talking about now. Not the girlfriend. Well, we're sitting there drinking, just talking. And her ex, his brother, and like 7 dudes walk in. And I know this from the court case. And immediately, within seconds, they start pointing at us. I know this from the court case. I saw the video footage, or otherwise I wouldn't remember. So they make a beeline straight over there. They start fighting about the kid and who's watching it and all this, that. And they're literally like slapping her, physically hurting her. So obviously, through those years of fighting and bodybuilding, I was pretty tough. And I had fought. I knew what I was capable of. So we went at it. And I basically just got sucker punched. And that was about all that happened. They kicked the guys out. About 2 minutes later, they come over and kicked me out. And I was like, I didn't even do anything. They hit me. And they're like, it doesn't matter. You're out. And I said, I don't even want to be here anyway. Well, they were outside still waiting for me. And by law, they're not allowed to do that. They're not allowed to kick me out at the same time somebody's out there threatening me. But they did anyway. And so I went out and I held my own. I fought the main two guys, which is the one guy that dated the girl that I was sitting with. And they were both big guys, bodybuilders. They did MMA. The one brother was supposed to be some big time fighter, and he ended up being nothing. He never amounted to anything. In fact, the one brother that I'm talking about, he just went to jail this past week for shooting at a girl at the bar because she didn't want to give him, you know, sexual relations. So he has a wife and kid at home. So now he's gone. He's gotten all kinds of charges for it. So I mean, these people just don't ever learn. I held my own in the fight for about 3.5 minutes, and a third guy came from behind, tackled me, and they literally stomped my head into the ground. 5 of them just boom, boom, stomped my head into the ground, crushed this entire side of my head in. This side was broken here, here, and up through here. The doctor that rebuilt my face, I just got lucky when it happened that we had one of the best trauma surgeons on. Well, they had to rebuild my face with metal plates and whatnot, and he said he had never seen damage like this ever in his life. He said my bone fragments were smashed down into my skull so hard that he had to take vice grips and put his foot on the bed and pull back as hard as he physically could just to try to rebuild my face. He said there was no way I should have survived that, and that the fact that I did, I should not be sitting here talking. I should be gone, dead, you know, crushed in head. And here I am making a video. So, when me and that girl broke up, the drinker girl that ended up, you know, going to this bar too, because of the drinking, I was dying. My liver was shutting down. So not only did I get my head kicked in, now weeks later, now I'm getting, I'm dying. My liver's shutting down. And the doctor literally told me he'd be lucky if I'd make it 3 days. When I was in there, I called the girl because, you know, at this point I was just hurt and still wanted to be with her. And she said she didn't care if I died in there. And I never did anything to her. So, for about a year after I got out of the hospital, my liver's not killing me, but almost. I had bloated up because I was dying. I had put on, like, I don't know, so much water weight that I couldn't put shoes on my feet. My feet were so swollen. I had to take all these medicines to try to get me somewhat back to normal living. And so I was really hurt, and I went and saw a therapist and talked through a lot of things over that timeline of that year, and just talked. It helped me. And I realized, like, God gave me a blessing by getting rid of me, or getting rid of her out of my life. And you can even tell this eye is the normal eye, and this eye has the plates around it. You can see my eye is always a little more open than this eye. It's just from the nerve damage and stuff that had happened to me, and from the injuries. So I was living with my parents, and I started dating another girl, and they were living in Florida at the time, and I took care of their house where they were gone, and that was a no go. I was at 38 years old or whatever, I wasn't allowed to have a girl home. So my parents got mad, sold the house. Now I'm homeless. I had nowhere to go. I was trying to get off of methadone because I just wasn't going to live this way anymore. I had nothing. I was homeless. I had a broken down truck. I had no friends, nobody, nothing, literally. I mean, it's stripped away of everything that I ever had. And I'm sitting in the back of my truck because I had nowhere to go. I just had nothing. There's a lot of railroads in PA, Pennsylvania, and I was thinking back from when my dad worked on the railroad, and he always said that, you know, he would investigate train wrecks, and like where people would walk on the train tracks, say, with headphones in, and they wouldn't hear the train coming from behind them, and it would kill them. I mean, literally kill them. Their bodies would just burst into pieces. So I thought, well, that's my way out. I have headphones and I would just go sit on the tracks. And that's where I was going. In fact, it was the one rail yard that my dad ran. And so I'm right at the train tracks and I'm about to go down in because I'm on a bridge. And a guy I knew from the methadone clinic who I rode with sometimes to get my meds, he comes pulling up beside me and he says, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Nothing." He's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" I'm trying to play it off. He's like, "I know what you're up to. You're not doing it. Get in the car." And it's like, "What?" He's like, "I know what you're about to go do. Get in the car." Well, all I wanted was somebody to, show me that I wasn't as alone as I thought. So I willingly got in the car, and his wife worked at the hospital, and that's where he was going to see his wife. And so they got me into the psych or the mental ward, and I was up there for about 5 or 6 weeks. And so when I got out, I had nowhere to go again. And I was sleeping in my sister's garage. I at least had a shelter at this point because I had some stuff in there. That's the only place I had to keep what I had left from all these places I lived. And so when I was a bodybuilder there for a while, and I was staying pretty clean, and when I was just drinking, I met a guy I was a bodybuilding partner with, and I met his wife a couple times. I didn't really even know her. I barely spoke to her. I helped her do a couple exercises and stuff. And this guy was a piece of garbage. He cheated on her like constantly. So we were bodybuilders partners for about 4 years or so. I'd say 2 years, maybe 3 years, something like that. And then I blew my back out doing deadlifts, and I just couldn't lift. So here I go back to taking what would have been methadone and stuff, and I saw them one last time, and then I didn't see them again. So this is a couple years later now. I'm sorry again, I know this is not the easiest story to follow, but that's the only way I know how to explain it. I ran into his wife, and she told me how, or no, sorry, she messaged me on Facebook and was telling me how he was cheating again, like the 100th time, and she finally left him. And I was like, well, if you ever need anybody to talk to, you can hit me up. And I literally was just meaning to talk her, and I didn't expect her to hit me up. But she did the next day, and we went and hung out and had a blast. And a friend, so we were dating and looking for jobs, and I was staying clean. I was doing good. And so after a couple months of living together and hopping around because we were homeless, we still didn't have a place to stay, but we were working and staying at friend's house. A friend of mine that I worked with at Eaton Park called me and asked me if I wanted to go up to another town nearby and work up there as a manager, and I was like, yeah, I'll move up there. So me and the girl moved to State College, where Penn State University is, which is where I'm at now. And so we moved up here, and at first I was at the psych ward, so I had to see the psych doctor. And I was conniving, and I got her to get me like Adderall, and here I go again. And the Adderall led me to start drinking, and here I go again. I got real sick again from drinking, and again I almost died. And even in my wedding pictures, like normally I'm like 240. I was like 160 pounds. I was pale white in my marriage pictures because I was dying again. And I knew I had to change. I had to change somehow, some way. So about 2018, you know who it was? It was Russ Dizdar, mainly. I worked at Papa John's after Eaton Park, and I was allowed to wear my headphones. And I'd work 12, 13-hour shifts and started making decent money especially from being homeless and not having anything. So I started making money, and we got an apartment. We ended up getting our own house, and I got off all the psych meds. And by 2018, I was putting my foot down that I was going to be the Christian that I was supposed to be. And then that thought came back from when I was a kid, and I was brought up in front of that church, spoke over. Well, I still haven't spoken over thousands or stand before thousands. I can't even get 50 subscribers on a YouTube channel, which means that that isn't my time yet. But my back was still blown out. I couldn't eat. I was sick from the liver problem. And because I was listening to Russ Dizdar, he started teaching me personally, the way I understood him. You know, he kept talking about the authority that we have in Jesus Christ. Well, I was working at Papa John's. I was in so much pain. My hip was hurting so bad that I was going to go back, and my wife was back doing dishes. We were a manager team, and I was going back to tell her that I just couldn't work at all anymore, at all. And something said, like, at this point, I started praying for cops and ambulance men and, you know, EMS or fire or whoever, just for protection. I just say, hey, can I pray over protection for you? And, oh, yeah. So something said to me, like, you're praying for all these people, but you don't pray for yourself. So I just put my hand on my hip, and I said, in the name of Jesus Christ, I command my legs and hips to be healed. 3 seconds later, maybe a second later, an internet order comes in, and I turn around to look to see what it is. My hip's healed. Literally, I'm not kidding. I am freaking out. I start running circles in the store. I was on camera doing it. I'm screaming for my wife. I was like, I'm healed, oh my gosh, I'm healed. She's like, whatever. She didn't believe it at first. But I was showing her like how my hips lined up, my knees were lined up, because my right leg was literally like this much shorter because my hip was so bad. And it was not there anymore. My legs were normal size. It took her weeks before she believed me. But I was like, you know, I don't need the pain meds like I used to, whatever. Well, then, from all the years of abuse that I put my body through, my neck, I couldn't turn to the left or right. And if I tried, it was just cracking and grinding and popping. And it was just, oh, it was the worst sound. And it hurt so bad. So after work, we were at Sheetz getting something to eat. And I just put my hands behind my neck. And I said, in the name of Jesus, I command my neck to be healed. And it literally felt like I was picked up and dropped into a vat of warm honey and pulled out. I felt so amazingly relaxed and calm and comfortable, and I had no pain. And within like 6 weeks, I'm healed again. Well, when COVID hit, I was a waiter at Texas Roadhouse, and that fell through because the business was because of COVID. So we went to Taco Bell just to have a paycheck. And I was like the cleaning manager. They didn't need me up front for a while, so I would just go clean because I was good at it. Working in restaurants most of my life, I knew how to clean, what to clean, and I was good at it. It always looked brand new again. So I did that for a year and a half at Taco Bell. But in doing so, I tore a meniscus in each knee. So I was going to go get surgery, and right before surgery time came, the doctor's like, oh, you just have to get a COVID test, and then we'll give you your surgery. I was like, okay, I'll go get it. I walked out and said to my wife, there's no way I'm getting tested. They've never stuck that crap in my body, and it never will enter my body. So for 2 years or whatever, I had to wear braces on my legs so that my legs wouldn't fold out the back way. And I kept praying, and I just was getting no results, and my legs were getting bad. My wife was afraid that I was going to end up in a wheelchair. She does nursing and stuff now too, so she kind of knows what she's talking about. And I was like, no, no, I refuse. I'm not getting tested. And I was starting to get, worried myself, where I was starting to get like antsy and wanting to, just give in. And so one Saturday came. I do Walmart delivery. Well, actually, I'm going back to Papa John's. They offered me a big raise, my wife a big raise to go back. So actually, we'll be going back there here in a week. But one Saturday came and my knees were just killing me, and I just like, all right, I'm going to machine gun this. In the name of Jesus Christ, I command my legs and knees to be healed. And I just kept repeating it and 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 repeating it. And there was like the next day or 2 days later, it was Sunday or Monday, and I was getting ready for the day, and I looked down to grab the braces, and something in my spirit said, don't wear the braces. So I didn't. I was healed again. Healed. I have the braces at home. I don't need them anymore. So my hip, my neck, my knees, I haven't had a single kidney stone ever since. I was getting herpes because of the sexual stuff that I was involved in in my younger years. I don't get a cold sore anymore either. And I was healed of drug addiction as well. I do take certain meds. They're prescribed, and that's all I take. And in fact, I don't even take what I'm prescribed. I take as very little as possible. I've gotten it down to where I'm only on like 3 meds now. And they're one's for sleep, one's an actual pain med, one's a non-narcotic pain med. I still have a few things wrong with me that the medicine helps, but I've been slowly but surely working my way off of all of that. It's hard to go through withdrawal, especially when you try to keep working and living your life, and you can't sleep, you can't eat, you don't want to work. Anybody's gone through drug addiction knows how miserable that is and how little patience you have for anything, and you don't want to be doing anything. You just want to lay there and want it to go away and stop. So it's not that I won't. I will get off of this stuff eventually. The point is that I am literally a miracle. I am a standing, walking, talking, living miracle of the God, our Father in heaven, Jesus Christ. I wanted to make this video years ago, and I just kept not doing it. And I don't know if anybody will watch it or, But if anybody that's hearing this at this point, it's 40 minutes. I keep having to put my lights back on in the car because the lights will go off. Anybody that's doubting anything, God is real. He loves us. And he's not any of the things that the world believes. Like, so many people don't want to believe in God, but they know he's real. They can feel it. And if you're going through that, give in. We're about to go into the last 7 years of the Bible, and there is so much evidence to support that. It's not me just, wanting to sound sensational or, like I'm something important. I'm just here to tell you, like, God is real, which means hell is real. And you will go to hell. And it's for eternity. Have you ever stopped and just sat back and tried to wrap your mind around eternity? Listen, I've done it many times. I've working in the restaurant world. I've freaking burnt myself like crazy, and I hate it. I hate being burnt. I've been burned severely. Where one time it looked like I had like half of a softball in my hand. I picked up a red hot thing. I was working on a car and I didn't realize it was red hot. I picked up the wrong end. And then when that happened, I was making soup at home because of the big blister in my hand. I dropped boiling hot soup down, and literally the skin melted and rolled down my leg. And could you imagine living for eternity in hell? And for what? This world and all it has to offer? Look at the politicians. You really want to trust your life with them? I mean, look at Biden. What a nightmare that guy is and his family. And these people have some kind of power over us. And you're about to find out, because that new world order, they're not playing games. Now I'm preparing, obviously, for what's coming. But if I had no food, no water, and nothing, no anything, God will take care of me. Yeah, I have been ready. I've been getting ready since COVID hit. So it's not like I would, just not have some things that I need to have. My point is that I now know that no matter what I ever go through, God will always, like when you get to a certain point with believing and trusting and just fully giving yourself over to God, the way when you open yourself up to Him, when He steps in. I am a car guy. I'm a gearhead. I'm a petrol head. I love cars. I love trucks. I love motors. I love anything that screams. And I never thought I would ever have anything. I sat in the back of my truck planning my suicide. And I'm happier than I've ever been. I have a wife. I got to build a Dodge Ram truck. I'm buying a four-wheeler this week. And my wife and I just got offered our jobs back with a huge raise. And I didn't even ask for it. I was working my other job. I didn't even try to get a hold of Papa John's. They got a hold of me. And it's probably because my delivery job is being ruined by all these foreign kids that come in, and I'm not getting into it. But because of them, they're ruining the job for Walmart. Basically, they take all the no-tip deliveries, so why would they tip if you're going to just deliver it for free anyway? So like last year, I made a ton of money as a delivery driver, and I'm not making anything this year. And God seemed to know that, and He just got me a job I didn't even ask for. And it's probably the best job I've ever going to have as far as paying. So that's kind of the purpose of this video, is just please call out to Him. If you doubt anything that I'm saying, call out to God and ask Him to reveal Himself to you. And you'll have no doubts anymore. And it'll be the best thing, because this is, what it comes down to. I could die right now and I have zero worries. And that is the most peaceful feeling, whatever that I could ever ask for. To know that I don't have to worry about money, food, the government. Where am I going to live? How am I going to take care of this? How am I going to eat? And when this all comes down soon, possibly 23, I believe 23 will be the year of the first four horsemen. And then by 24, we'll have the AC on the stage. You really have to go out of your way to not believe the Bible. If you don't want to listen after this, then, if you're still listening and you don't want to listen to what I have to say, that's fine. But can you just stop for 5 seconds and think about this? Think about how everything works in the world. And I don't mean, I'm talking about the world, okay? We have microorganisms all the way up to us, our food chain. If one single thing in that food chain stops, we all die. We all have no food. If there are no bees, there are no humans. Now, if you think about how intricate the food chain is, but how simple at the same time. Now think about your bodies. You have a brain, you have a heart, you have a liver, stomach, pancreas. All those things serve a purpose. And if you don't have one of them, you either can't live or you definitely won't live right. And they want us to believe that this happened by chance because of some explosion, some big bang that they can't even tell you what the bang was. But we're supposed to believe that's where we came from when everything has such an intelligent design behind it. And they can't figure it out. So what's the thing? They just jump from one thing to the next. For so many years it was the Big Bang Theory, but now wait. Oh, we got it all figured out. Aliens seeded the planet, and that's how we got here. Are you effing kidding me right now? And I'm sorry, I do my best not to swear, but I get pretty angry and upset at stupid. I don't like stupid, because that's what got us to this point. But seriously, if you think about how all this stuff works, how your body works, you eat because you need the fuel. The fuel goes down into your stomach, and if it gets stuck here, you die, you suffocate. But if it keeps going down into your stomach, it goes down and it starts to break down, and it gives you the food or the fuel and the vitamins to fight off sicknesses. And if you don't eat right, you won't sleep right, or if you don't eat right, you won't have enough energy, or whatever. How can you deny that? How can you deny animals having animal instinct? They just got that out, out of just luck? And they all serve a purpose, and without one of them, we all die. So if we keep evolving as people, we've been here for what now? 4,000 years since the flood, 2,000 years since the flood. And there's a flood in every religion. But we've been here for 2,000 years and I don't see any evolving. Did the people in the mountains grow wings so they can fly around and get food? Do they grow bear paws so they can attack animals to eat? I don't see any evolution. The people living by the sea, that have, families that have lived there for generations in the same spot by the sea, do they eventually evolve into having gills so they can, swim in the water and be like a fish? Because that's what evolution is. If we've evolved from a microorganism, why don't some of us have wings and some of us have 4 legs, or some of us be able to swim to the deepest parts of the ocean and, not need oxygen? That's evolution. We're not evolving. We've been the same since day one. I beg you now. Ask Jesus into your heart, because that's the only way you're going to get through what's coming. Thank you for listening. Please leave a comment or anything you want to know. I'll gladly talk about it. Sorry for the video to take so long.